Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
From the Flames not scoring to coming home and not allowing one of the hottest young players in the league to get on the score sheet, the ever entertaining roller coaster ride continues for your hometown Calgary Flames. My name's Conrad Krausert, and welcome back to Game Over Calgary, where the Flames shut down the San Jose Sharks. Final score 2-0. I'm gonna play this despite the fact you didn't see much action. The first Dustin Wolf shutout of the 2025-2026 season. Wins like this make some of the losing a little bit easier to swallow, in my opinion. But of course, it didn't come easy for the Calgary Flames, because yet again, the Flames struggled to score. Of course, they win this game by a score of 2-0, but only score one in front of Dustin Wolf in a game that the Flames did dominate for vast stretches of time. And that's a little frustrating to me as a fan, commentator, all of the above. But a wise person in my broadcasting life once told me it's not how, it's how many. And the Calgary Flames win this one, taking home 2 points over the San Jose Sharks. And I gotta say, I wasn't necessarily believing that this was a Flames roster that would do something like this to, admittedly, one of the hottest teams in the Western Conference, if not the NHL. Because, you know, it's Macklin, Celebrini, Will Smith, and Tyler Toffoli, that top line that has been, you know, running a lot of the show in the NHL this year. But the Flames give this lineup credit. A lot of shuffling in the defensive pairings, a lot of a new face, and a waiver wire that I don't think a lot of Flames fans saw coming. But you know, it's sometimes, as we've suggested on this show, the youth movement needs to start happening, and the Flames may be starting to listen. Of course, we'll talk about the lineup changes a little bit later in the show after our recap of today's action. But before I go any further, if you're out there in chat land, come say hi in the chat. Come say your greetings, because it's not often when I'm hosting do we get to celebrate the Flames getting 2 points, especially in recent history. So I'd love to have you all in chat if you are hanging out watching. But yeah, I wouldn't say the monkey's off the Flames' back by any stretch of imagination, but I'll take improvement, and I'll take the Flames front office staff starting to maybe recognize that we need to start playing the kids a little bit more. But let's head off into that recap. A very, very low event game, but I don't think this score sheet that we're looking at is anywhere indicative of how the Calgary Flames played today. I actually think this was probably, without a doubt, the best 60 minutes of hockey we've seen out of the Flames all year. Dominant from pole to pole, not allowing San Jose to have a shot for the first 17 minutes of the game. Like, that's something we haven't seen from the 2025-26 Flames at all this year. The struggles, I'd argue, well, the number one struggle has been putting the puck into the net. It also seemed that the Flames really were struggling on the back end, and it seemed to have slowly come together. And I was looking at this game actually as a way to test what the metal of this Flames back end was. And it bent a few times, especially in the third period, but seemed to be fairly solid throughout this game today. So yeah, the Flames open, as I said, not allowing a single shot in the first 17 minutes. San Jose's only shot does come as a breakaway opportunity onto Dustin Wolf. Wolf slams the door shut. It was a shorthanded breakaway, I do believe, if my brain's completely remembering it correctly, or maybe it was just after Vincent Desharnais' penalty had expired. But the Flames fire 13 on a goalie that is known to bet on himself and go on hot streaks in Yaroslav Askarov. Also known to not hold on to his paddle, if you remember back to the World Juniors, where he was playing for Team Russia and just seemed to let in 5-hole goals left, right, and center because he couldn't hold on to his paddle at all. Didn't come into play today. It's always something I wonder about with Askarov, though. But yeah, first period, Flames poured it on. And it was a full 4-line effort. I know I've been very, very critical throughout a lot of this stretch and season about the third line, but actually, you know what? I think Konzek, Backlund, and Coleman were really, really good today, especially in that first period. And the Flames did everything except solve Yaroslav Askarov in the first. And you know what? It probably is something I can say about the full game. Askarov was pretty good. Managed to keep the Sharks in this one. And I had to, we're killing Sharks. I had to wear the Jaws shirt today. Just had to point that out. But yeah, and it's interesting that was kind of the way we saw things balance out. Because I think that a full team effort is really what these Flames have only gotten a handful of games this year. The only other game I can think that this team actually played as a full 22-man unit might have been that game 1 up in Edmonton. Nothing else, frankly, springs to mind. But, maybe I'm just not thinking of all of the Flames games this year because maybe I'm blocking some of them out. But yeah, after the first period of play, the Flames were ahead in the shot department 13-1, and was an interesting one for the Flames. And I think it was Steinberg that said the Flames had something like 37 shot attempts to San Jose having less than 12, if I remember the statistics completely correctly, which isn't likely. And shout out to Pat getting his first time on the Rogers Television Airlines. He says he's the least photogenic human, as the hosts of the intermission program said. Nah, I think you're as attractive as Brent Cron at the very least. But yeah, 16's only the one shot for the Flames, and the Flames almost managed the same number of shots San Jose had all game. Really, really kind of impressed with how the Flames managed that first, and then they come up in the second, and they don't let their foot off the gas. We all know, we've all watched a lot of Flames hockey, and if there's one thing the Flames love to do, it is play 20 minutes of hockey, take 20 minutes off, and then play the third. Didn't do that today. Kept the pedal to the metal, and eventually, after 5 minutes of the Flames just wearing down Sharks defenders, including, I almost felt that they were on the beneficiary of having more pressure when Matt Coronado was in the box for his first of 2 penalties today. But Blake Coleman eventually takes away a bouncing puck and managed to get the goal. Of course, a lot of credit on Twitter and Blue Sky going to Connor Zary for absolutely harassing the tired legs of the San Jose Sharks. And yeah, big credit to Connor Zary. He's a guy that hasn't allowed this perceived demotion down to the fourth line to really truly get to him mentally. And that was something that we talked about last show, was where is Connor Zary's confidence? Where is Connor Zary mentally? I think this is one of the best games we've seen of Connor Zary in this role. Is it the role that I think the Flames necessarily want him in long term? No, I don't think so at all. I think the Flames see him as a top 9 winger more than a bottom 6 center. But you play the hand you're dealt, and Connor Zary filling in for a waived Justin Kirkland filled in admirably today. I actually thought the fourth line was really good. Gets the pressure, leads to the goal. So you never really want to call it a bump up shift, but it is what it is, and led to the Blake Coleman unassisted goal. Nice wrist shot too from Blake Coleman, who has 7 goals on the season, leading the Calgary Flames if my brain's still fully functional. I had this up here. Just got to hit a few back errors to make sure that my tally is correct. Yeah, Blake Coleman, your leading goal scorer for the Calgary Flames. Just one of the few guys that seems to be increasing their trade value day by day. But yeah, as I said, kind of the same story of this first period continued in the second. Second verse, same as the first, a whole lot louder and a whole lot worse, maybe. But yeah, really, again, completely dominating possession, control, 14 shots to 5. Seemed like a team that was very different than the one that we just saw for both games on the road. The only thing I didn't like in the second period was Matt Coronado's 2 penalties. He took the 2 minutes for tripping William Eklund, and then it took the 2-minute minor for delay of game when he flipped it and he's in the middle of his own zone. That one was a little bit frustrating, especially considering that Matt Coronado has been one of the best Flames over the last period of 4 games. He's been completely driving play, and we saw it as part of the 2 goals that weren't enough in the last game. That wrist shot is starting to come back to where we expect it to be as Flames fans. But taking the 2 penalties could have turned this game on its head. Didn't end up being the case, obviously. And game continues. The Sharks did kind of play their way back into it in the third, but the Flames managed to shut the door, assisted by a couple penalties from the Sharks. I really felt that John Klingberg penalty, that the tripping on Michael Backlund, really took a lot of wind out of the Sharks' sails after I felt that they were really beginning to get into this one. But, Dustin Wolf, you're going to be paid like a starter starting next year. Still on that rookie contract, and by golly, it's starting to look like a better deal day by day. We talked about it last game, where with the pressure of Dustin Wolf needing to be nearly perfect every time he steps into the net, lead to his downfall. Didn't appear to be that way today, as he gets the better of this goaltending battle. And Phobos 1869 with a great comment here. The Flames won, and yet still their goals per game average lowers. Flames hockey, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, Sam Honzek gets the icing on the cake, scoring with 5 seconds left after Michael Backlund flips it out to center. Good hard work by Sam Honzek. A lot of guys would have kind of just allowed that flip to end the game, but it means a lot to Sam Honzek, whose first goal in the NHL was erased in a loss. Gets it and fires it in, and hands Macklin Celebrini a -2 on the evening. So yeah, the Flames actually were down in shots in the third period, 10-9. But I don't think I can recall a lot of games since the end of the Darryl Sutter era where the Flames have dominated 36 shots to 16, a 20-shot differential in today's game. In the face-off dot, the Flames dominated, which is actually something I was worried about. You have a lot of guys that are pretty good in the face-off dot in general. And if you look down the Sharks rosters, a lot of guys are actually listed as centers full-time, even though they don't play necessarily full-time centers. But yeah, leading on the face-off dot, 63% to 70 or to 37. That's probably about where you want it to be. Neither team scores on the power play. Flames trail in hits. It's hard to hit somebody when you're controlling the puck for a majority of the game. Sharks blocked 25 shots, so this one could have been even worse if they hadn't gotten in the way of a lot of lanes. Flames leading in giveaways. Hard to give away the puck when you don't have the puck. and they actually won in the takeaway department. I'm not unhappy with that, and as I said, the Flames really struggle, much in the same way that a lot of people criticize the Toronto Maple Leafs in struggling in not playing 60-minute games, where they come out, maybe, as I joked about, they need pre-game ceremonies before every home game just so that you can get through the first 13 minutes and the Flames will start to play hockey. But all things considered, a very, very well played game from start to finish. And as I said, Dustin Wolf comes away with the 16 save shutout. And you got to admit, like, a lot of those saves weren't high danger, but as goaltenders always talk about, whether that be Kelly Rudy on the commentary, or if you listen to some of the guys on Twitter that talk about goaltending, sometimes those games are hard when you're not facing a ton of rubber. Like when you only see 16 shots all game, sometimes you can get complacent and one sneaks by you. But Dustin Wolf keeps the clean sheet, as they call it in many other sports. And you know what? Yaroslav Askarov coming out of this game with a goals against average of 1.03 is always going to be funny to me. But at the end of the day, the Flames pull home a victory. And was this necessarily the kind of victory I've been talking about the Flames needing? No. Was it entertaining in some points? Yeah, the Flames, as I said, they carried the lion's share of the play. I don't have actual possession numbers for the squads up for myself, but you know, it's nice when you can come out on the right side of things occasionally, and as we know, being Flames fans, haven't always managed to do that. And I'm just letting the Money Puck deserve to win a meter run this game, and the Flames, according to the statistical analysis that the fellows over at Money Puck, or the folks over at Money Puck, do, the Flames would deserve to win this game 13.4% of the time based on their 1,000 simulations. And I wish I could show you this, but I can't actually show their scoring chances on our stream because it's not something we've produced. It's interesting looking at where the Flames scoring chances happen, because generally with the Calgary Flames this year, it's been a really big clump right around the top of the crease. Today, you're actually seeing a lot more scoring chances. Maybe not great scoring chances, but more scoring chances coming from around the periphery, coming from the top of the circles. And, you know, it's definitely a positive sign. 13.4% of the time, it works all the time. Shout out to Toke, number one on that one. And another thing that I think we should point out before we go to period number 2, expected goals, as I've talked about a few times, expected goals, not the be-all, end-all stat, but it does kind of give you a picture of the game when some of these games get a little weird and wonky. Expected goals for the Calgary Flames, 4.35 according to Money Puck. 2 goals expected for the San Jose Sharks. So Flames, in the if and buts were candy and nuts bowl, still win this game by about 2.5 goals. That leads us into the discussion I wanted to have for period number 2. And this is something that a lot of people have said, hey, Conrad, you're a little too negative. Let's talk about some of the players who have been shining in this Flame system. And I think this stretch of games for Matt Coronato is starting to make me a believer in him again. Zesty Italian noises increase. Yeah, Matt Coronato played a heck of a game. Did not get his name on the score sheet. Tough to do that when you only score 1 goal through 59 minutes. But yeah, the only thing I didn't love about his game was the 2 penalties he took, because that, in a tight contest, is something that can get away from you. And I think a lot of media and fans in this fan base know of another guy who was really, really good, but kind of got chased out of town because of the reputation for the stick infractions that he's had. And that guy now has 2 Stanley Cup rings. Of course, I'm talking of a singular man that goes by the name of Sam Bennett. Still has one of the better mustaches in the league. Austin Matthews taken out. But it really was a continuation of what has been a standout performance from Matt Coronado, starting to show that he truly was deserving of the contract extension he got. And then I've been so critical of that third line of Honzek, Backlund, and Coleman for them to come out and show me that I'm wrong. I'm used to being wrong. Trust me. Ask my partner. It's most of the time. But they proved me wrong this game in Backlund winning faceoffs, in obviously both of his wingers scoring goals, but playing a solid 200-foot game, which has been one of my criticisms for Michael Backlund, especially this year. I haven't felt that he's worked back into his own zone as much as he necessarily needs to. I've numerous times on the show have called for him to be manning the fourth line, but if this is the kind of effort we're going to see from the Flames team and the third line, Michael Backlund is correctly positioned in that regard. And we'll also talk a little bit about some of the guys who drew into this lineup that maybe Flames fans weren't as familiar with. Number one, that's going to be Rory Kerins, who just got recalled today from the Wranglers and slots in the left-hand side of line 2. This is after something I didn't see because I was busy yesterday. Justin Kirkland placed on waivers, as well as Daniil Maramanov being reassigned down to the Wranglers. What does this mean for the defensive side going forward? Does that mean that we have a potential return from injury, or that the Flames are happy with their 7-man defense as it stands now, with Yan Kuznetsov kind of slotting into that second pair? It's possible that the Flames have finally been more happy with the mix that they have on the back end. And of course, we do have to, with that, say that it was the first game for Jake Bean in 5. And the guy they took out wasn't Kuznetsov. It wasn't Pahal. It was Joel Hanley exiting the lineup. Which, if you've listened to Game Over Calgary, you know I've been kind of on that bandwagon for a while. And you know what? I thought this, as few minutes as was played by that third pair. Let me get the exact minutes for you here. We only saw Braden Pahal for 13:28 of this affair, and Jake Bean only shortly longer for 14:20. But Jake Bean was out there when this game was still close. Like, he was out there at the end of that penalty in the third. Like, this is a player that I've been critical of, but then I keep hearing about how the advanced stats love Jake Bean as a third pairing defenseman. Maybe we're starting to see some of that play out in the eye test, and maybe this is the 6th defenseman you start to see the Flames run with for a while. Knock on wood, the health of the 6 D-men continues. And it's great seeing Yan Kuznetsov starting to get that belief of this coaching staff, because he played 18:05 today on that pairing with Weegar. I think it's been great. I think he's finally allowing Mackenzie Weegar to be the player that we've come to expect out of the man wearing number 52. Oh, Toke, I knew that that comment was coming a mile away. I thought he was fine. I thought he was good. He's a +1 today. He must have been on the ice for the empty netter. But I thought he was fine. And that's better than I can say I've said for a lot of nights for Joel Hanley. Denaman can attest that in our private messages between the two of us, I thanked the Lord that Joel Hanley was finally getting to eat some popcorn today. And hey, you know what? 1 game without Joel Hanley, 1 win. Stats don't lie. But yeah, that kind of really talks about how the lineup changes happened and gave some shining lights to some players. The Joel Hanley bowling over Dustin Wolf will not continue until morale improves. But let's go into period number 3, because I think that this is an important point to make. Does this mean, this one game mean the rebuild and Team Tank is over? The Flames are going to win, may never lose again. No. No, they came on the right side of a bad game for the San Jose Sharks, because I think they played the worst hockey I've seen them play all season. Not that I'm watching the San Jose Sharks overly closely. But boy, the Flames can only play the team that they're lined up against. I don't care if you're facing the Moscow Red Army team on the other side. If they're having a bad day, you need to take advantage of that. And the Flames certainly have been known for allowing teams who are having bad times and giving them a little bit of an easier time. And also, hey, we beat I'm going to call him a backup. We know he's a 1B in the San Jose Sharks system. But hey, we got a win over a backup goalie. That's got to count for something. Because we do not do that very often here in Calgary. Of course, obviously, the Sharks are going to have to run with what's his name? My brain's just on the loading ring of doom. Yaroslav Askarov for a while, because I heard that their starter is now officially listed on the hockey inactive list, which isn't the injury list, but means he's not available for the team to select. Because yeah, Skarek is the only goaltender listed. And obviously you saw on the broadcast, they talked about how they had to put their goaltending coach in, and then Skarek arrived just before the power play drill started. Can you imagine that, being a goaltending coach, like throwing on your back or your starting goalie's pad and Alek Nedeljkovic, and then having to go against people drilling, like NHL players drilling power plays? That would be absolutely terrifying. I think for 70% of NHL goaltending coaches, especially where is Jason LaBarbera at now? Is he still a part of the Calgary Flames coaching staff? Or no, he used to be the coach for the Oilers that everyone was talking about in the playoffs needed to be better, because Jack Campbell's a starting goaltender in the NHL. But yeah, a guy like Jason LaBarbera, even though you're a former NHL goaltender, I'm sure you don't want to go in and practice. But yeah, so beating Askarov, not having to worry about Nedeljkovic coming off the bench, definitely is something that these Flames can start to build on. We have to continue to our proud tradition of missing the playoffs by one spot. Okay, no, bottom three. If we keep believing it, number 72 will just magically appear. But yeah, this period 3 wasn't going to necessarily talk all about the Sharks and their goaltending struggles. I was actually intending for this to talk about Rory Kerins and what I don't necessarily think was his big here I am NHL moment, but coming from AHL call up to second liner is not an easy thing to do. But is it the right thing to do? I think so. I think for the foreseeable future, you'll see Connor Zary and Igor Sharangovich starting to rotate on that fourth line spot. And who knows about Igor Sharangovich even with the play of Connor Zary today. But I thought Rory Kerins was noticeable wearing that number 6, which Rory, hey, that's a defenseman's number. Can we please just swapsy doodle? Anyways. But yeah, seeing that number 6 flying around there today was good to see. I didn't think he looked out of place on that second line with think his two line mates were with Nazem Kadri and Joel Farabee. Was it the best game for Naz? No. But I think he can take a few of those and just be happy with the wind. I honestly was shocked to not see Sam Honzek get the bump up and let Rory Kerins play on the Backlund Coleman line, especially when the words that I'm hearing is that has kind of been the game that Rory Kerins has been focusing on developing, is becoming that shutdown guy, not necessarily being an all offense guy, which was the critique coming out of last year's Wranglers season. But we saw him on line too. Thought he looked perfectly fine. Yeah, it's a lot to expect for a player to come up from the AHL and start just lighting the lamp immediately. I know that was kind of the problem last year with the Oilers and a guy like Matt Savoy. And obviously, not everyone's going to come out of the minors and just instantly light the lamp like we saw Matt Coronado do last year for the Calgary Flames. Giving Rory Kerins a little bit of runway to kind of find where he belongs in an NHL roster, I think isn't the worst thing. But do I necessarily think Rory Kerins is going to be a full-time NHLer if he is the one that sticks around? Not necessarily. I think he can survive being that 13th forward for this team for the medium to long term, maybe until Pospisil's injury is figured out. I didn't hear anything on Pospisil about Marty Party this week. I'm going to do a quick Google to see that I am. And of course my Firefox is frozen. At least the stream's still going out. I just know my computer is having a tough time right now. I'll look that up in a bit. It means I don't have chat too. I'll pull you guys up on my phone. So let's continue talking. Yeah, it is wondering what this Flames team will do if Martin Pospisil is healthy in the next little while. Okay, Mark Stone needs to go on LTIR or Vegas isn't going to make the playoffs. I haven't been paying attention to the Vegas Golden Knights. I believe it was you that... Oh, there we go. Computer decided it now wants to show me the internet. I know it was the suggestion that could be the landing spot for Rasmus Andersson. I believe it was by you as well, Tokay. And am I saying that right? Is it Tokay or Tokai? I apologize. I just think of the Geckos every time I see your name. But anyways, I haven't been checking out a lot of the teams over the Pacific recently, but it's that kind of goes into something, the spirit of this game. We are starting to see a lot of these young guys in the Pacific start to pick it up. Like if we look at the Pacific Conference standings, like it is these younger teams that are on the come up beginning to push their way up to the top of this division. The Ducks sitting in number one spot. Okay, I don't think I'm going out on a limb to say nobody saw this coming. Like, I think the Ducks were predicted to be basement dwellers with the Flames this year. But that young core, after making some changes, has been winning games, and you're going to win more than you lose when you have an 11 goal or a plus 11 goal differential. Obviously, they've lost the last couple, but we'll see what version of the Ducks is for real. Followed by the LA Kings, who have continued their progress from going from dynasty to retool, maybe back into that direction. And the Oilers, they're starting to bounce back. As much as it hates me to say that, or it irks me to say that, the McDavid and friends, as I've called them multiple times, starting to bounce back. And, if you eliminated the couple of big losses that they've had, their goal differential looks a lot better. But who knows what are outliers. Kraken Sharks in 5th place in the division as I knock a can off my desk. They're going to be battling for that wild card spot, and I foresee that for the next little future. And as Tokay said, it's an interesting situation for the Vegas Golden Knights because they're down in the bottom of the conference, but they do have a ton of well, not a ton, but a couple games in hand. They also have one of the few positive goal differentials in the Pacific. And then, of course, we have the Canucks and the Flames. Flames with just pulling up their 5th win of the season after being the first team to hit double-digit losses. Of note, they are the only team in the Western Conference that has double-digit losses. So that will be the end of our first 3 periods. I'm going to turn it over to you guys in the chat. Any questions, comments, concerns, whether you're talking about the weather and this incredible magnetic field we have going on. I don't know if some of our usual friends are trying to outfind auroras today, like they did last night, where I was looking at all those pictures on X of the pink and purple and red auroras over the last few nights. Absolutely gorgeous. But any questions, comments, concerns? Will it rain tomorrow? I don't have that answer. You can ask it. And something I do have to touch on while you guys get your questions, comments in the chat is, of course, we were supposed to have a live stream last night of the Calgary Inclusive Hockey Association. That had some technical difficulties on my end. I take the blame for that. I truly do hope, however, to get out to allow the fans and friends of those who play on either Calgary Flare Terra or Calgary Flare Luna. I really want to allow your friends and family to watch while there is commentary. Unfortunately, we did get the recording working for the last 5 minutes, so if you head over to the main Game Over channel, we do have the 5 minutes, and guess what? I actually had to go to a shootout to decide the winner in that one. So if you want to go watch a little bit more of me in my more natural environment doing play-by-play, head on over to the Game Over Network main channel, and you can watch some of that. Or, hey, gonna promote this as well. There is some amazing hockey going on this weekend of the U18 variety. Let me get the name of this tournament that's going on over at Winsport correctly. The 2025 Rocky Mountain Classic. It opened up today. Don't have results for you, even though I could probably get that. But if you are wanting to go watch some amazing U18 hockey just before the Circle K Classic comes to town in November, head on up to Winsport. All 4 rinks having some amazing U18 hockey throughout the day. Or big shout out HN Live. Tune in. Dave and all the guys over at HN do a fantastic job. And hey, they're even inviting a little known commentator to go out on Saturday. So we'll get that if you want to head out that way. There's myself. I know Peter Klein's also doing some broadcasts out there if you want to go see Peter. My buddy Gino DePaoli is also out there. Anand Unnithan, I know, is also doing some games. So it's a lot of Calgary Game Over friends around there. So if you want to go watch some U18, head out there. Next time we stream that, we'll do better. Trust us. I was there putting my whole gut into the filming. Yeah, it wasn't the best setup for the stream, but it was kind of fun to do. Thank you to the Denim Man for working our cameras. Only question I see so far is, what should Edmonton do with the money they stole from McDavid? Invest in a goaltender? I think that's about it. See if they can eat half of Darnell Nurse's contract and actually get competent defending. I don't know. What they're doing up there, I don't know. If you're wanting actually to know what's going on with the Edmonton Oilers, some great content over on the Hockey News from Avery from Game Over, formerly of Game Over Edmonton. Actually, well, still currently of Game Over Edmonton, even though they aren't doing shows. Go check out some of Avery's writing. If you're in the Discord, I know it was posted there. But yeah, doing some great writing about how all of this doesn't fall solely on the goaltending or on the defense up in Edmonton, especially on Evan Bouchard. Boy, it's an interesting problem to have when you're losing games with the two best players in the NHL. And a slumping Leon Draisaitl, which is really great for my fantasy team. But actually, you know what? Since we don't have a ton of questions, comments, concerns in the chat, I'm going to leave chat and we'll have a bit of a conversation about this. When is the next time we see Devin Cooley? Because obviously both the Flames goaltenders starting to round into form. One of them expected, one of them unexpected. When is the next time we see the Flames backup goaltender? Because looking at our next string of games, we have this little brief home stint with the Flames, and the next game against the Jets, I don't foresee Cooley starting that one. Do you see Devin Cooley heading out on the road to take on the Blackhawks? Or, because you have to think he probably gets one of the back-to-back games, so whether that's the Blackhawks or the suddenly surging Sabres, who do you send out Cooley against? I personally think that based on Cooley's numbers and the fact he is still your backup, I think it has to be the Sabres. But it's tough. You try and see what he has against the Blackhawks, because last time the Blackhawks and Flames met, Dustin Wolf did allow 4. So do you allow Cooley to see a team that he hasn't faced? Toke number 1 saying Blackhawks, we can't let Bedard 4 bagel again on Wolf. That, as I just said, could be the mentality. And you know what? Actually, we're probably going to see a fair share of Devin Cooley over the next little while. So we're saying Cooley against Chicago in game 1 on the 18th. But the Flames have back-to-backs. Does he start against the Stars or against the Canucks on the 22nd, 23rd? But let's steal Peter Klein's signature line and put a bow on this one. The Calgary Flames shut out Celebrini and the Sharks. Only one goal with a goaltender in between the pipes for Blake Coleman. Sam Honzek gets his second. And the Calgary Flames. And Dustin Wolf get the victory at home against the Sharks. We will see you again Saturday when the Jets fly into town.